Hello everyone, and welcome to my new Chunk Ironman series called NomadChunk. I have been following and watching a lot of the different one-chunk YouTubers and have been loving how the one-chunk playstyle creates a new way to play the game that makes a lot of the normally forgotten content very important and very valuable, and it creates a whole new way to experience and play the game we all love. I wanted to create my own version of this incredible game mode. Merriam-Webster defines a nomad as a member of a people who have no fixed residence but move from one place to another, usually seasonally and within a well-defined territory. Which is exactly how NomadChunk will be played. By continuously losing and gaining access to different parts of the map, NomadChunk will be moving around the map while always confined to a small part of the grander old-school RuneScape map. Thank you for watching and joining me on this very interesting journey. I hope you will enjoy. In order to show what it is that makes NomadChunk unique as a way to play the game, I will go over the rules of the account, the motivations for creating this type of account, and the goals for the account. Which leads us to the rules of the account. If some of you aren't aware, I'll start out by explaining what a chunk is. The old school RuneScape map is separated in these small squares, which you can see in the photo here. Each of these squares is called a chunk. People have found many different ways to use these chunks to create a new and different experience of old school RuneScape. A classical chunk account will normally be starting in one chunk and slowly expanding after they have completed all the different tasks in that starting chunk. They will slowly be moving through the entire map by doing this, slowly expanding from one starting point all out through the map. NomadChunk will be played differently. NomadChunk will always have access to the same amount of chunks and will be moving around the map, losing chunks as he gains new chunks. So NomadChunk will never be able to expand into a huge part of the map at the same time, but will always have to make use of the small part of the greater map that he has available in the moment and take advantage of what that little part of the map has to offer, while also trying to get by on a little bit of the map at the same time. So let's dive into the rules of NomadChunk and see how this account will be played. I will now be going over the different rules of the account, but everything will be explained further and shown with practical examples when I'm going through the different parts of the rule set while playing the account. So unlike the normal one chunk account, I'll never have more than 5 chunks unlocked at the same time. I'll start out with 5 chunks, and at the end of the 5 chunks, I'll roll 5 new chunks. Every time that I complete a chunk, I must choose one chunk to leave behind, and therefore my territory will be shrinking until I can unlock 5 new chunks and I can move. That way, I'll never be in the same place for very long, and I'll always be moving around the map. There are 2 ways for me to complete a chunk, either by getting 1 level in a skill, or by getting 1 collection log slot. This means that I'll always have to think hard before getting a level, as it will force me to remove one of my chunks. This means that I will want to finish everything that I have available to me in a chunk that doesn't require levels or collection log slots before getting levels, as I might not know when I will be able to return to the chunk, as all new chunks will be rolled randomly. So I'll always have to think hard before gaining a level or completing some kind of content that might give me a new collection log slot. When rolling new chunks, the previous 5 chunks will not be available for a new roll. This is made as a rule to avoid going back in the same direction and avoid getting stuck. For example, when I leave Lumbridge, I won't just roll the same 5 chunks again and staying in Lumbridge. Also, it allows me to decide a little bit in which direction I want to go, as I can decide where to finish my chunks and roll from there, and I can't go back. So sometimes I will be able to decide if I want to go more north or south, or at least have a higher chance of going that direction. And before we start getting into the actual account and the gameplay, I have one last question that I want to address that some of you might already be thinking. Why this type of account? Or why all these different rules? I wanted to play this type of account as it's a very different way to play old school RuneScape. It might flip the entire premise of old school RuneScape on its head. That might be a little bit dramatic, but hear me out. In old school RuneScape, there are no deadlines. There generally are no urgency. If you don't want to train agility, you don't have to train agility. You can go raiding, and when you're done with raiding and still don't want to train agility, you can raid some more. And when you finally feel like you need to train agility, the agility root course will be there waiting for you. It won't go anywhere. By playing this type of account, the agility rooftop course might actually be going somewhere, or at least my account will be going somewhere. I can be sure that I'll be back to enjoy the content when I want to. If I pass up an opportunity, it might be gone when I want to use it. So I always have to think about what would be the best course of action right now, as I might not be able to get back if I miss something. The aware viewer might have realized at this point that this account will literally have an end. I won't be able to keep moving forever, as at some point I will get stuck in a chunk where I don't have any new levels to gain. It might be because there's simply nothing to train in the chunk, but more likely I will already have maxed all of the skills that I am able to train in the chunk. If, for example, I'm still missing Slayer and Runecrafting and I get stuck in Varrock, there's no way to train either Slayer nor Runecrafting, so I might have to give up on the account at that point. We have added collection log slots as well as an interesting way to progress the account further than skills. So in some of the chunks where I might not be able to progress skills, I might be able to get collection log slots. Here I've put the numbers on the screen. In total, I will have 3,769 possible chunk rolls if I manage to max the account, but that will pretty much be impossible, as there are some skills that it will be pretty much impossible to max, and there will be some collection log slots that it will be pretty much impossible to get. This means that I will always need to think about which skill is the best skill to train in a certain situation, as I will be running out of time, so I'll need to do something that moves me toward my goals. And if a skill will be very difficult to train in the future and I have a way to train that skill, I might be able to take advantage of that and at least consider it as a possibility in the chunk before moving on, as I might not get that opportunity again. So the more I can train the difficult skills when I get the chance, the better. The same thing goes for collection log slots. If I have a chance to get a collection log slot, it will allow me to get another roll down the line, as I will always be able to train my skills, but collection log slots might be difficult to get, or they might be contained to a certain area of the map. Which leads perfectly into the goals of the account. I have a goal of reaching a certain total level and a certain amount of chunks rolled, which will depend on the total level and the collection slots unlocked together. I have done some calculations and I have come up with a number that I think will be possible to reach with these restrictions and these rules. I will show you this goal in a future video, as I would love to get some input from you guys on which total level you think it will be possible to reach with these restrictions before I get to a point where I can progress the account any further. So I would love to get your input before I share my goal, and I would love to see how separate or how close they are to each other. We might be very far off or we might be very close, but I personally do not think it will be possible to max the account. That's all I'm gonna say. So I would love it if you would leave a comment if you have a guess on how many total levels it would be possible to get following these rules, and we can keep speculating in future videos as well. So a high total level and a high amount of collection log slots is an overall goal for the account that I will always be working toward. Then we also have some more short-term goals where, for example, I have unlocking herb law, as it will give me a new skill to train and a new way to unlock new chunks. And the faster I can unlock it, the faster I can train it, and the more herb law levels I'll be able to get down the road. So that's a very early game goal. Another early or maybe a little bit more middle game goal is to get a fire cape. And some early game goals connected to that will be to get the gear needed to get a fire cape. That can be by killing some bosses, killing some NPCs, or maybe doing some clue scrolls, which might be able to get me some gear that I will need. If not, I might be able to do some skilling to get, for example, Black D-Hide or Rune Crossbow. So that's something that I can always be working towards, and it will definitely affect in which direction I want to go, as I would really much love to get a 5 cape on this account. And finally, I have put Slayer as the last goal here, which is a little bit of a different goal, as it will require me to get to a Slayer Master and get to the monster that I need to kill. So while doing my other goals and while progressing the account, I'll always need to keep in mind where is the nearest Slayer Master, or how can I get to my task. In that way, while going around the map doing other things, I will always be moving towards my Slayer task or a Slayer Master, as Slayer will be a passive skill that I'll try to train while moving around the map. I can't just decide to get 5 Slayer levels, for example. So it's very important to try and keep Slayer as high as possible during the account, because if I'm getting closer to maxing and I'm level 30 Slayer, it will be a big problem, as I will get to a point where I don't have enough rolls left to get to my task and back to a master over and over again. So the earlier I can get to a Slayer Master and I can start training some Slayer, the better. These are some examples for some of the overall goals for the account, but while playing and while progressing the account, I will be making new goals, more short-term goals that will span over a few episodes. This is what the goals look like for now, and I will always keep updating them as we are playing. Which means that we are finally ready for our first chunk roll. Here you see our current chunk map with Lumbridge unlocked, and I will be rolling 4 more chunks with these 4 possible first chunks. I have given it a little bit of thought about what would be the ideal way to go. I would preferably avoid the desert, that there's not that much content there, and if I end up going down into the main desert, there'll be a ton of empty chunks, which will make it very hard very early. So I would prefer to go west or north. South, there's not a lot of ground to cover. If I go into a dead end, I will explain what we'll do in that situation when it arrives. But some early chunks that would be very nice to have is the Draenor Village Agility course, Rooftop course, as I don't know how I would be able to train agility early, so getting that out of the way very quickly would be very nice. The thing is, I can't get more than 5 levels at the same time. I would have to go somewhere else and come back, as when I get 5 levels, I will have used up my 5 first chunks. Another thing I'm thinking is there's the crafting from Ball of Wolves. Early game crafting might be hard to train as well. Could be a nice start to get. Um, but we'll see. I'll do the rolls first, and then we'll see what we get, and I'll start thinking about what the best course of action is. So let's get into it. I have cleaned up the chunk picker a little bit, and let's get going with the chunks. Hopefully we go north or west. Let's see. I'll do it slowly, one at a time. We will roll 5 chunks, and we'll see what happens. South is interesting. I will have to unmark 5 and 6 here, as I will not be able to go there. I can't cross the water. That's one chunk, free to go. Doesn't really help me much. I think there's some mining down there, some fishing. We'll see. I'll take some time to think after rolling the chunks to try and figure out what my best course of action will be. I haven't thought that much about it, but I'll go slowly about it as I explained earlier. It's very important to figure out what would be the best thing to do and start all the quests that I can start while I'm in the area, because I might not be able to go back. So if I skip over an important part of a quest that I would like to do later, I can't just go back and do the step. I'll have to wait for me to roll the chunk again. So let's see, a little bit of rambling there. Okay, I don't think this chunk, no, there's no way to go into the 4 chunk either. So that's free to go. I don't think that's a very useful chunk either. I won't enable diagonal chunks. That's why I'm not enabling the Drainer Village one now, which means that it's impossible to get to the agility course as I would have loved to go to, but let's see where we end up. I would love to get the free now. Oh, the sheep pen is already in the chunk, so the crafting would be possible if I get nothing else. Let's see where we go. North. Unfortunately, the fourth chunk here to the east is still rollable, which is very bad because that will literally be an empty chunk, a waste of a roll, because I won't be able to get in there. But there is a little bit of land available in the north as well, so I'll have to keep it as an option. And let's go ahead and roll the last chunk. Okay, we went very far north, which does give some very interesting possibilities because, as I explained earlier, I can choose myself which chunk to end up in. I can start out by completing the south chunks and end up in the north chunks, which gives me some kind of a choice in which direction I want to go. So if I want to go to Varric or to the wilderness, if I want to go north, I can actually somewhat control that I'll be going in that direction. But I'll get to that when I finish checking out the chunks. But very interesting, very far from Lumbridge, and I'm not sure there's a lot of useful content up here for a brand new account. So all in all, a very solid roll. Not the worst roll, as we stayed away from the desert, which I'm very happy about. Not the perfect roll, as I would have liked to get to Draenor, but a very solid roll. And let's see what happens. I'll see you in game. So here we are for the first time in game on the account. This is what NomadChunk looks like. A very nomady outfit, if you ask me. As is tradition on these one chunk accounts, I will drop everything from the inventory. And while dropping the starter items and going to the bank to fetch the 25 GPs that will be up there, I would like to take a moment to talk a little bit about my experience in old school RuneScape. I am by no means a top player. I have a main which has like 1,900 total, something like that. I have never maxed an account, and I'm by no means a very skilled player. And the same goes for editing. I'm by no means a skilled editor. It's my first try at making a YouTube video and series, so feel free to give me feedback in the comments and bear with me if sometimes the clips are a little bit messed up and stuff like that. We'll be learning together, and feel free to give me tips on the gameplay side as well, as I am by no means a RuneScape pro. And before we start playing, I also have one extra rule I've added to the account, that I will not be doing any alt account shenanigans. Mainly because I don't think it fits the spirit of the account. I'm specifically thinking about if I get to a chunk where there's fire giants and I want to rune scimitar, I would have been able to use an L to poison or venom the fire giants, and by doing that I would gain very minimal XP and might have been able to get the rune scimitar drop, for example, without gaining XP. But in my opinion, that's very much against the spirit of the account, as I will have to think about if it's worth it to kill the fire giants in hope of a drop, as I might be getting a ton of XP and levels. I might even be forced to leave the chunk before I get the drop. But for me, that's very much the spirit of the account. So I'll be playing on this account and this account only, and if a method requires an alt, I won't be doing it. But we'll look at specifics down the line. But a little added rule there. Okay, so here we are in game again. I didn't have time to pick up the runes again, but I'm very excited about having a look around and seeing what type of content I have available in this chunk. First of all, if I can find the way to disable the roofs, hide roofs, that was very quick. Let's go. I have enabled the plugin that shows the available chunks as in color and the rest in black, as you can see here on the map as well. All of these are the chunks that we started up rolling. I'm very excited to see if it's possible to cross south of the wheat field up here and actually get to the south of Varrock. Let's go and check that out first. Here we have the sheep pen and we can get in there so we can share some sheep if we have access to the thing needed, the scissors for sheep shearing. I'm not certain that we have a way to get that actually, but crafting might very well be some of the first levels, as I'm not sure how I'll be able to train that later, so getting some early crafting levels would be very nice. I have disabled, or not disabled, but hidden the attack option on NPCs to make sure that I don't accidentally start getting XP, because they might be very valuable later down the road. Every XP, if I want to kill some monsters to get some drops, I'll have to do so. Oh, let's see. I'll finish that thought later. It seems like it's very much possible to cross here, so that's excellent. That means that we can also access the Dark Wizards, which I surely won't do without having a higher HP and higher combat levels, but very nice that. To finish the other thought, if I want to get a drop, I will have to get it before I get 5 levels, or I'll be kicked out of the chunk and have to move on, so the less XP I have in the skills, the better. As you can see, we're still the first level, 32 total level, and for each level we'll have to start removing chunks and have less area to play on. We have the goblins. I'll check out the drop tables for all of the NPCs available to see if there might be something worth trying to get. I seriously doubt it, but we'll see. That was the chunks available to the north, and then we have the entire swamp. I started out as a hardcore Iron Man. That's not important. If I die at some point, doesn't matter. I'll run back to the chunks in which I were last. I won't use death mechanics. I won't try and abuse them in any way, but if I happen to die, so be it. I lose the status. It's not something that I'm very attached to, but might as well have it and see how long we can keep it going for. I have the axe shop here, value. I have very much considered trying to get one of the axes in this chunk, as I feel like woodcutting would be a very good skill to have access to. If I can get a tinderbox, knife and an axe before leaving these chunks, it would be very good, as that would allow me to train woodcutting and fletching and fire making everywhere, because some of the more empty chunks, if I just stay here for a second, that might not have much, like this chunk, this chunk, this chunk, this chunk, they'll probably always have a few trees. So no matter where I go, I'll be able to get woodcutting, fletching and fire making levels, which makes sure that I won't get stuck somewhere. I think that these giant rats might be aggressive. Okay, let's try not to die in the first clip of the account. I'm actually not sure if they are aggressive, but as I don't have any food, I would rather not die. They might not be. Let's run past them here. And we should be very fine. the Lost City Shack. I'll also have to check out what quest progressions I have available here in these chunks before starting to gain XP, as once I start removing chunks I might have missed some quest progression that it will then be too late. I have some swamp tar here. I might collect it, might be useful at some point. I have to take advantage that I have a bank right now, because I won't always have a bank. I might be going for a while without unlocking chunks with a bank. So far so good. We survived to the other side of the swamp. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for these chunks. Oh, first random event. That's very nice. Let's see what it is. It's a maze. That's actually very crazy. There's the whole hub world maze strategy that I'm not sure if I will be using. I think I'm not gonna do it right now. I think I'm gonna complete it normally and let's see what happens. I should be able to stay here and figure out the path before. Let's give it a go. It's the first random event and I really wasn't expecting that. Surely the first maze of many to come, so we'll see what happens. I was really not prepared for that. It was literally the first clip of the video, and I'll have to look up if I want to do the whole log out in front of a chest strategy and spend an hour doing that. But for now, I'm just gonna rush to the middle and see what we get. Okay, here we are. 75% seems very reasonable. Let's see what we get. 32 arrows and 8 chaos runes. I imagine that might be scaling off of playtime or total level or something, because that's not very impressive, to be honest. But some runes and some arrows is very nice, and we have a bank in this chunk, so I'll be able to chug it in there if I need it at some other point. Let's get back to Lumbridge and see what our next course of action will be. And that's all that I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. I wanted to keep this first video a little bit shorter, as it contains all the rules and all the practical information about the account. In the next video we will get a lot more into the gameplay and we'll be ready with the first chunk roll of the account. I will probably be uploading fairly frequently, as early game on this account. It won't take that much time to make progress. Most of the time goes into planning and figuring out which way is the best way to proceed in a certain situation, which is perfect for me as a player, as it allows me to not have to play that many hours, but still make some progress on the account. So for a little bit more of a casual player, it's a very nice way to play, as it allows me to go through the day planning and thinking about which would be the best way to progress, instead of having to play 100 hours to progress the account. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon for the first real episode of the series.